let's go on. Now we talk about a flow chart for program preparation. So we have step 1, step 2, step 3. This is a program development process. In this course, we will build VB projects by what we call incremental development. So incremental means what? Step by step, right? That's a good way to do it. A repeated process of adding controls, adding code, and testing. Okay, so you can see that that's what we're going to do. And notice there's this arrow here, which means we'll go back and do this again, and go back and do it again. So this describes some kind of process that we want to do repeatedly. Okay, so let's see what it says. Step 1, making the project solution. That just means opening up that window, opening up something like this, so that we get a form. And then step 2, form preparation and controls arrangement. So that means that we're going to put buttons here and whatever else we want, maybe text here and different things. So that's what he's talking about. We'll see how easy it is to do that. So form preparation and controls arrangement. Controls means those buttons or text boxes and so on. Setting control properties. So for example, we'll have a button, but we want to say click me or click here or close or open. We want some text on the button. So those are part of the properties of the button, or in general, control properties. Adding program code. Let's see, by the way, let's just see if we have some example here. Here's a button. I'm sorry, here's a button. Here's a button. Here's a text box. And here's a label. So these are what he's talking about here. So adding controls to it. All those things were called controls, and then setting their properties. So let's see, he didn't set any of the properties yet, but now he has. So before, we had just this default name called label 1. And by the way you put this on there is you simply drag this over to here, and then it will say label 1. If you do it again, if you drag this over here, it'll say label 2. So the default word or text is label 1, and would be label 2 over here. But of course, that's probably not what you really want. So you need to set the property of this label, and he's done that now. He set the text property of this label to enter your name. So that's there, and then we have this box here, so that we're telling the user to enter their name here. So that's called changing the property of this label. So the label originally has a text property of label 1, but we don't really want that. So we change it to enter your name. So that's what he's talking about. For example, here's a button. So originally the text property of this button was button 1, and the text property of this button was button 2. But besides text property, you might have the color property or the font property, different properties. They call them different properties, different attributes of the button. But now we've changed the name, or the text rather. Right? We've changed the text to OK, because it's better than button 1, right? So button 1 doesn't tell you what it's supposed to do. And here we've changed the text property of this one from button 2 to exit. Okay, so that's the terminology we use. We say the property of the button, the property of the button, the property of the label, the property of a control in general. Okay, and we're talking about the text property here. So again, we could be talking about the color property or various other properties. Going back to here, so you set the property. First you put the buttons and so on where you want them, and then you set the properties, and then you need to add some code to make the button actually do something. Just calling it, having a text property of OK, that just says it says OK, but what is it supposed to do when the user clicks it? That you have to add in as code. And again, where do you do that? You do that in here, and we'll see how to do that. And then, of course, after you've done the programming, you want to do what's called debugging. You want to test your program. You don't want to just sell it to somebody without testing it, right? So you need to test it. And then what does he say? He goes back up here. You might, after you've tested it, you might do some addition, make some changes, change some properties, add some more code, test it again, and repeat this as many times as you need to. And then finally, when you're done, you can save the project. And then you can deliver it to a user, or you can deliver it to me as homework.